With the transfer portal closing on Monday, we're going to talk about some people that are coming to UCF from the transfer portal and some of the guys that are getting shipped out. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. Thank you for tuning in. Obviously, a Saturday episode. I hope you're enjoying rounds 4 through 7 of the NFL draft. I'm assuming that's what you're watching, hoping Alex Ward and the rest of the boys get a shot and get drafted today. But gave Rob and Nick the episode off. There's not too much news surrounding the football team prior to Monday. We've got, a transfer at linebacker that we'll talk about a little bit. We'll talk about a couple of the players that are leaving UCF and entering the transfer portal, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But before we get into all of that, a quick word from our sponsors, BetOnline. BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL, hockey, right next to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to betonline.ag or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Hope everybody had a great NFL draft couple days, and we're still going with it. I'm actually watching, as I'm recording, I'm watching the second round. Dolphins just picked up Cam Smith, cornerback out of South Carolina. I'm a Pats fan, so I'm trying to, we have a lot of question marks, so I'm trying to keep up. But UCF, obviously we want players getting drafted, right? It's good for the program. I think this year more than other years, it's one of those bleak years where we'll be lucky to get one or two players drafted in the later rounds. And I'm sure in the coming years, we'll be right back to getting those players kind of in, the first through fourth rounds. But this year, it's kind of just like you're hoping. I think Alex Ward, like I said, he's got the best chance out of all the guys to get drafted, best long snapper in the draft, and probably a day one starter heading into the NFL, in my opinion. But let's talk about the big news that we got this week. Rian Davis transfers to UCF. Obviously, we talk about this, right? Linebacker has been the biggest question mark, especially heading into this first season in the Big 12. A lot of young talent, a lot of guys that maybe don't have as many reps. You have Jason Johnson as the clear-cut number one guy. And then after that, you had a lot of question marks. And I think bringing in an Apopka kid that was at Georgia for 5 years, and proved last season he can play. I mean, there's no question he's got talent. He wasn't at the top of the depth chart by any means at Georgia, but to bring in a hometown kid like that and to let him play his final year here in a chance to play. I don't think they're saying, listen, you're going to be playing, but I think when you go to a program like Georgia, who's won back-to-back national championships and are behind some of those top linebackers that are getting drafted in the NFL draft, I think UCF is getting a good one here, and I think that's really going to help the program this year and that linebacker room. I mean, when you look at the linebackers that we have, I think you could see a bunch of different options this year. I mean, you could see some young guys like Cam Moore. You could see Jason Johnson needs to be playing on pretty much every snap, right? He's an NFL linebacker, and that's a guy you will see getting drafted next year, just on his sheer talent. But to get a guy from Georgia, and I get people, I've seen it on Twitter, right? It's the common, he didn't play at Georgia, he's no good. You're getting a guy that didn't play. It was the same thing with Amari Kite when he transferred in. It's like, oh, he was a backup offensive lineman from Alabama. There's a reason they were on these programs. I mean, I think people forget that, listen, some guys, like I think it's honestly more respectful or respectable if you go to a program and you stay there and you don't play. Like, Rian Davis clearly wants a final opportunity to play football and to put stuff on tape, and he hasn't had that much of an opportunity at Georgia. To come to UCF, where he's going to have a really good shot from day one to start, it's a win-win. And I think it's a huge, huge win for UCF to get, at the time when he was an incoming freshman, he was one of the top players. He was the top player basically in Florida, in Central Florida's area. But to get a guy like that of his caliber, former 4-star, has played at Georgia the last couple of years, to come here and to have a really good chance to start, that is great for UCF. And listen, that's probably why Braden Jennings ended up transferring out. And I think with Jennings, a lot of fans, it was kind of one of the, when, I'm not mentioning both their names, but Braden and who came in, we were all excited and we were all pumped, right? But there's all this weird, like, I don't understand it, and you got to give whatever players want to do, but UCF was Braden's third school that he had transferred to. Now he's going for a fourth. So I think competition, I think certain players sometimes might assume, like, hey, I've worked this hard, and we'll talk about Quan Lee in a second. I have a different opinion on him, but I think, listen, UCF clearly is going to go get those players that they think is a position of need. I think corner is a position that I think UCF is going after, and we know a player that is going to be coming on an official visit here soon. But I think getting a guy like Rian Davis to come in and pretty much probably start right off the bat, first of all, it's going to be really good for the young linebackers in the room. I think that's going to really help them a lot and learn. Again, he's been at Georgia for X amount of years. Seeing and hearing stories of how they do things, that will only help that group. So I'm excited to see what Rian Davis can do. And listen, it's a competition, right? And I think to Jennings' point, I think, listen, he wants a chance to just go play. And I think he can get that opportunity. If he can find a school that he can probably start from day one, and it's just not here. And I honestly thought he had a really good chance to come and but make an impact in his first season in the Big 12. That's why I'm glad he was going to stay. But, every player's got to do what's good for them. And clearly he thought transferring was the best option, and more power to him. I totally understand. Now, I kind of alluded to this a couple weeks ago when Nick, and I think both Nick and Rob were on, but I said, I have a bad feeling about one player, and I really don't want him to transfer, but if he does, I totally understand. I would totally understand. And that player was Quan Lee. And I've been a huge fan of him ever since he committed. Obviously, one of the highest rated wide receiver recruits that UCF has signed on National Signing Day. And he's got the speed. He's a prototypical UCF receiver. And I mean, he's got the speed. He can put the burners on you. And I was really looking forward to when he got that opportunity. Now, UCF, we're known for wide receivers. I mean, to play wide receiver at UCF, you have to wait. You have to wait a little bit. Or you have to be insanely talented and beat some of these guys that have been playing in college systems for years. I mean, UCF signed Quan Lee, and obviously we got Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson, and those are your 1 and 2. I mean, those are number 1, number 2. Yeah, last year I had Ryan O'Keefe, so those are your top 3. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall. In the spring game. I think he was not in the rotation. I think he was probably third string. And if you know the receivers that we have, I think he probably saw the writing on the wall, which is it's pretty simple. And I think UCF specifically over the next couple years, and this could be a good or bad thing. I think they're going to go heavy transfer portal for receivers. And they are not going to really go for maybe the top receivers in the class of that year. They're going to go after one or two, and those are going to be their top guys. But I think the way that I'm seeing this is like, yeah, your freshmen that are coming in are going to scratch and claw and fight to get to the top of that rotation. And one or two might. But in my opinion, it looks like UCF is going to be mostly going after those transfer wide receivers, and they're going to get the reps. Because let's be honest here, okay? Baker, Hudson. Those are 1 and 2. Magwood is probably 3, depending on how we're looking at things. And you have a couple other guys, right, that, Amari Johnson. You have guys that have stayed and are now going to get their opportunity. But I think these young kids, and this is why some of the UCF fans that I saw and that were commenting, I understand because he did tweet out, like, I'm willing to wait. And I think UCF fans take that as, oh, and then 3 days later. You don't know the whole situation. And I think people are right back that. You have no idea what the whole situation is. And I think ever since Quan came to UCF, he has been an amazing, player for the community, an amazing person for the UCF community, the UCF football team. And you can't fault a kid for doing what he thinks is best. And I'm not going to fault him for it. I mean, I'm not going to fault him. Honestly, I think it was the right decision for him. Even though I would really like him to wait and see what could happen, I think we could use a player like him in that receiving room, and I think he could make an impact. We're not there in the practices. We're not seeing what the coaches are saying. We don't know what was said. We have no idea. Just like we don't know with Thomas Castellanos. We have no idea if the coaches said, listen, we don't view you as a quarterback. We have no idea. So I think for the fans that are being really hard on Jet, I think you really need to, in this new age of transfer portal that we're now pretty deep into, compassion and just showing the players love. Because at the end of the day, this young kid signed to your program and did everything he could for the program, and now is doing what's best for him. And that's what all these players are doing. All these players are at UCF because they think it's best for them. So if they are leaving UCF, they clearly think it's best for them. So I really implore fans to have a heart, have some compassion. Once a night, always a night. He's a great kid. And everybody that comes to this program, all you want to do is support them. Regardless, listen, Ryan, I would have never watched another Boston College football game in my life, most likely. But guess what? I will watch some, and I'll support for Ryan O'Keefe because I think that's important to do, and I'm excited to see what he can do. It's different if they're going to a rival. Like if they're going to USF, okay, we're having, a little bit different circumstances. But even if Quan went to USF, straight up, there's no ill feelings. I mean, at the end of the day, I want what's best for the kid. And I think he can really shine somewhere if he's given the opportunity. He's still so young. He's got 4 years of eligibility. He's going to be fine. And it sucks he's not going to be at UCF. But I wish him nothing but the best. I'm really excited to see what he can do. UCF going into Monday, I think it's very obvious a couple of the things they need to get. I think corner, we talked about this. Traquan Fegans played at Alabama, and he is as of today, he was on an official visit to Georgia Tech. He's visiting UCF next. That would be a huge get. I mean, if we're talking about a guy that could probably come in and start day one, it would be him. Maybe not day one, but, he will get an opportunity. I mean, he was in the class of 22. Transfers pretty early. He was 95 4-star. We'll be really intrigued to see if we can get him. But we don't have many roster spots. And that's the thing. Like, we don't have many roster spots available. And I think I like the team that we have right now. let's see what we can add. We added a Georgia linebacker. Can we add an Alabama corner? That will probably be on next week's show. We'll get into that. We'll see if there's any staff changes. I know there's rumblings that we might have some staff changes or people added leaving the staff. Who knows? Before we go, Casey Thompson. Saw a lot of UCF fans kind of pushing for Casey Thompson and really wanted him to commit. I know UCF offered a different quarterback as of right now. We don't know if UCF has offered Casey Thompson. I'm pretty sure we offered a Charlotte quarterback, freshman. Do not get your hopes up. We'll talk about it on next week's show, but I see a lot of UCF fans pushing for that, and all I'm going to say is do not get your hopes up on it. I think that'd be a great player to get, obviously. I think he's probably the number one quarterback in the portal right now. Not really much competition in that. But all I will say is just do not get your hopes up. That's all I'm going to say. We'll talk about it more on next week's show. Really short episode on your Saturday. Want to get you out, and hopefully we get some UCF players drafted. We'll talk about that on next week's episode of Charge On. Thank you again. I'm sorry for the shorter episodes, but I hope it's concise enough for you to just get a quick watch and move on with your Saturday. We'll be back next week as always, and hopefully we can get Rob or Nick on to discuss some more UCF football with you guys. So this has been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. We will see you next week.